deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, I am pleased to present to you our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as he presents Replication, Misrepresentations, Distortions, and Corrections. But before he begins, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Now, let's receive Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey.
Islam, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Wadi Makum. I want to share with you tonight some of the issues of replication, the misrepresentations, and a lot of the distortions that have been presented to the people so that we can, by our own intuitive mind, begin to make some necessary corrections, particularly for this placement, cycle placement that we might also refer to as time. First, I want to share with you again, chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Koran, in order to bring to the forefront a frame of reference that many of you already have and many don't have, so that we can probably get a little bit on the same page in relationship to tonight's conversation. Some of you are already here, but for those who are less knowledgeable, let's share with you chapter 1, Divine Instructions from the Holy Prophet, Circle 7, Koran. Chapter 1, Time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No infinite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject to change. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. The bodies and the souls of men are finite things, and they will change, yea, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. But man himself is not the body nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. Creative fate gave to spirit man, a soul that he might function on the plane of soul. Give him a body of flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to soul a body of the flesh that he might function on the plane of things that are made manifest? Hear now, ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. Hear now, O protoplast, and earth, and plant, and beast. Hear now, ye creeping things of earth, ye fish that swim, ye birds that fly. Hear now, ye winds that blow, ye thunders and ye lightnings of the sky. Hear now, ye spirits of the fire, of water, earth, and air. Hear now, O everything that is, or was, or evermore will be, for wisdom speaks from out of the highest plane of spirit life. Man is a thought of Allah. All thoughts of Allah are infinite. They are not measured up by time, for things that are concerned with time begin and end. The thoughts of Allah are the everlasting of the past into the never-ending days to come, and so is man, the spirit man. But man, like every other thought of Allah, was but a seed that held within itself the potencies of Allah, just as the seed of any plant of earth holds deep within itself the attributes of every part of that especial plant. So spirit man, as seed of Allah, held deep within himself the attributes of every part of Allah. Now seed are perfect, yea, as perfect as the source from which they come, but they are not unfolded into life made manifest. The child is as perfect as the mother is. So man, the seed, must be deep planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold, as does the bud unfold to show the flower. The human seed that came forth from the heart of Allah was foreordained to be the Lord of the plane of soul and of the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman of everything that is, threw forth this human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul, and he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. Hark now, let every creature hear. The plane of soul is but the ether of the spirit plane vibrating not so fast. And in the slower rhythm of this plane, the essences of life are manifest. The perfumes and the odors, the true sensations, and the all of love are manifest. And these soul attributes became a body beautiful. A multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul, and there he tarries many ages until his lessons are all learned. Upon the boundary of the plane of soul, the ether began to vibrate slower still, and then the essences took on a final garb. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and the all of love were clothed in flesh, and man was clothed in flesh. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal nature was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshly things. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. Let every living thing stand still and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, of plant, of beast, but he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yea, he must suffer trials and tribulation and temptations manifold. But let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun, and spirit of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. And when man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served its purpose well. and it will fall, will be no more. Then he will stand untrammeled on the plain of soul, where he must full complete his victories. Unnumbered foes will stand before man upon the plain of soul. There he must overcome, yea, overcome them every one. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light. There is no failure for the human soul, for Allah is leading on and victory is sure. Man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah, and while Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have full opened out, will have unfolded into the holy breath. And the garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will need it nevermore, and it will pass and be no more, and man will then attain unto the blessedness of perfectness and be at one with Allah. Now, I shared the Holy Koran, Circle 7, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, to remind many of you who already know or who have been studying in Moorish culture and ancient Asiatic African culture and science and traditions, to give further insight into the foundations of many of the customs and traditions that have evolved into the different religions of the world, and to remind us of our origin and also our travels. Now, in relationship to the politics and the political forum that is taking place now at Midgard, and much of the confusion that has involved the both what you would refer to as the economics, the trade routes, ancient and modern, the concepts of people's political and religious positions, etc., is to remind you that all of these things are temporary and will pass. And because they're in the process of being dismantled right now, that we're living through, many people who have forgotten or may have a tendency to subject themselves to the confusion that's taking place and the unsettlements that are taking place with people, both politically, mentally, and economically. This is why I shared chapter 1, to remind you again what many of you already know, and to remind some who may not have had the how do you say, the benefit of having some of this older literature shared with them. Now, in relationship to the capacity of man, i.e. spirit man, we must remember, as you read chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Koran, that it lets you know that we are dimensional beings. And I know that a lot of people are aware of that, but have not necessarily been cognizant of the fact that Prophet Noble Ali shared with us a lot of the ancient customs and traditions of our ancient mothers and fathers, to bring us to a level of consciousness that when these times manifest, that we would be better able to handle them mentally and spiritually, which manifest into what we would call the third dimensional or lower level of the third dimensional concepts and conditions that we find ourselves in at Midgard now. But at the same time, reminding us that when time comes, that the vibrations of Midgard would increase, that a lot of the things, institutions, and a lot of the material concepts that we have about ourselves and about values, that they would begin to dissolve. And logically, with people who are not aware of the manifest, or what we call hominidae, or the physical body, and all of the institutions and the material goods that have been around us that we've become adjusted to, that they would be unsettled when they start recognizing that these things that they have held as securities would be starting to dismantle. But is to remind you that while we have attached ourselves to many of the agencies and institutions in this third dimensional operations at Midgard, that we were already told generations ago that they would begin to be dissolved. So with that awareness, let's talk about our willingness to shed our attachments to the dark side of the priesthood, who have been pretty much in general for quite some time, or we would say a few thousand years, in control of the institutions that most people have built their lives around. So look at it this way also, that while the people have in many ways attached themselves to the institutions and to the customs and traditions that have been subdivisional supports for the institutions and agencies, understand that they have not necessarily, and for the most part, have not been put in place actually for human spiritual development or human economic security, but have been actually put in place for the absolute opposite. And so by many of the people, particularly some of the generations, I'd say for the last few, say maybe 700 to 900 years at least, have pretty much systematically lost a cognizance of the real metaphoric meanings of many of the scriptures that have been given to them by the priesthood, without knowing the knowledge or having the knowledge that the priesthood had went pretty much dark, and they have been pretty much operating on a selfish or narcissistic level. And while many things have been held back from the people, Mother Nature doesn't recognize or acknowledge necessarily what the priesthood have done for themselves and how they have criminally contaminated the planet and all of humanity in general. And because many people have looked to them for guidance, etc., and not knowing themselves and not knowing the capacity of themselves that was already built in, which is one of the reasons why the priesthood have consistently promoted the misconceptions of people looking for the God energies that they refer to outside themselves. And because the institutions have been built around that concept, it has, by virtue of the strength of the mind of the people, actually been suppressed. In other words, the chains that have been holding humanity back have been more mental than actual. And so a lot of the information that we've been sharing over the years has actually been set in such an energy to deny the energy that was projected by those who've been running the institutions. And of course, this is why many of them over the years have been in stark opposition, and also with their many of their minions, why many of them have been compensated to troll anyone who have put out this kind of information, because it's not in the interest of the dark priesthood, and logically not in the interest of their minions who have been secondary or third level beneficiaries by virtue of whatever benefit they may receive to maintain what is commonly referred to as the status quo. And people who have been asleep to these operations of the dark priesthood logically, without knowledge, have been actually subconsciously or unconsciously supporting many of the institutions that was designed to their own detriment and to the detriments of their families. However, because the operations of nature don't necessarily, and they don't really, to put it bluntly, correlate with the political and social constructs of human organized government, etc., which for the most part has been actually counter to the laws of nature and to the laws of anything that's divine. Logically, it becomes obvious to the general public that there's a severe clash going on multiple levels, and many people have not been able or been trying to figure out how to deal with the current events mentally, politically, and economically, because they've either forgotten and are not aware of the operations of the nature of themselves and also the shenanigans of the priesthood and what has occurred at Midgard to bring us to this level of din that we've been plagued with, etc. And so many people, by virtue of a lack of memory and a lack of cognizance of self, have been actually doing different things in their intent to be good, to restore or to repair some of the institutionals constructs that they recognize undoubtedly now are being dismantled. But I'm just sharing to remind you that that's not necessarily what needs to be done, even though it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and it's not what's going on, although that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Because a lot of the dismantling is actually ultimately for the betterment of humanity and for the uplifting of humanity. However, because most of the people at Midgard have lost consciousness of themselves and have been under the control of the General Education Board systems set up in 1902, which most of you already know about, they didn't know or didn't take into account, or they were not cognizant of the fact that they were dealing with AE, known as artificial education, AI, known as artificial intelligence, and AF, artificial foods, and all things generally artificial, and AJ, artificial jurisprudence. And this is where you get what they call color of law with artificial jurisprudence, color of office, and color of authority, which have been instituted in society as a whole, that has blocked any real operations of what the people call justice, which was a tool and is a tool of the priesthood by which they could continue their genocide operations of the Unum Sanctums, which you all know about, and why around the planet, all of the so-called prisons have a predominant numbers of Aboriginal peoples being the population, etc., which is really in place to complete or to further the unum sanctum operations of the dark priesthood, or what you call earth genocide. They'll call it reducing the population control, etc., whatever titles they give to it, eugenics, etc., dealing with the Gates family, Sanger operations. All of these different operations are related to that. But what must be comprehended, that the biological reduction and elimination of the biological form, particularly the most strong or genetic strain or stock on the planet, is and was and is a direct attack on humanity, period. And it's ancient, it's not new. And people have not been aware in general that the core of the operations, the projection point of the operations, is the Vatican of Rome, including and not limited to hell. Now you know that the people have been told the mystical or mythical format of what they thought hell was, but actually hell, in truth, is really the different tunnel systems under the executor's chamber of the priesthood, period, traveling all around the world and going down actually a few miles beneath the Vatican, and all of the so-called triple sister cities, sovereign operations of the demonic formats of the priesthood, which would include not so much London as you hear, but the city of London, which is their corporate title for their tunnel systems under London, which ties both to the Vatican and to the Seven Hills, donated to the priesthood at between Virginia and Maryland, on the line, which is a ley line, known as Washington, D.C., as a throne for Columbia, a queen of Rome. And all of these passages between them, beneath them, are referred to as hell or the executor's chambers. This is why, knowing that most people have not been aware of the actual political operations at Midgard, why over the years we would direct the people to different legal and law phrases, including, as you will recall years ago, we would tell people to go into Henry Campbell's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition and below. That means 1, 2, 3, and 4, because as you all know, all scholars know, fifth edition on out, they heavily edited them, knowing that that many helpers were coming here to assist the people into the methodologies of the Circle Church and Chancery, and that they would have to make counter moves, which they have absolutely done. And this is why over the years, you all who have shared any of the works of the Great Seal, or the Adept Chamber of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, or with the Round Table, or with the Moorish Honor Society, etc., have been always geared to get 4th edition Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition and below. And this is also why they deliberately start reducing the availability of those books, or raising the fiat price so high that the average being was unable to either purchase or acquire them. However, over the years, there have been a large numbers of people who had, during the periods of times of us sharing information, acquired those and other literatures, including Bouvier's law dictionaries, etc., which was used logically by the board of directors for the United States Corporation Company, registered in Austria. And you know them generally as congressmen and senators for the U.S. corporation. They're really board of directors, and logically they keep the dark priesthood abreast of the state of mind and the state of affairs of all the people, particularly those at the Maghreb or at the far west, etc., knowing that the general fall or the projection of the Unum Sanctum operations, although seeded from the Vatican, the army comes from the north, i.e. North America, etc., and has spread out around the world. And so logically, the people of the land have always been of first interest for the priesthood to reduce, to genocide out, to suppress, etc. And this has much to do why you'll see a lot of people who have what you would call adeptus level knowledge, and also known as Masonic level knowledge, do very little to promote into the public arena anything about Noble Drew Ali, because he pulled the wool off of everybody, and he gave certain keys that would definitively lead any being that had any curiosity for social, political, economic, social counter engineering to improve the conditions of humanity here at Midgard, that anyone that began to study would find other information that would open doors to other information, that would open doors to other information that would expose the priesthood, which has absolutely occurred. And so because it has gotten to the point of that occurring, the dark priesthood have increased their dark side Babylonian magic against the people at large. And so you must be aware that that's what's going on. Because the actuality is that the people, you yourselves, are your cure. It was actually seeded in you just just in case many of you forgot. That's again why I always reminded you to pay attention to chapter 1, because it's not numerated, and it's because it was projected for as a key for many of you to use at this cycle placement, or what you call time period. Even though we know on your higher planes of life that the time placements that we use commonly now actually don't exist in that sense. And so when you're looking at the planes of life, also look at what you would call, what other people who know what's going on would call dimensions. And that they're all going on really at the same cycle or time. They're just simply layered. This is why we should tell you it's layers, because that's what it is, and it's never not been that. Now, being aware of that, comprehend that the capacity to replicate is also part of the capacity of man, or what you call spirit man. And this is again why it has been important for the priesthood to always promote among the people what is referred to as outside gods. And this is so that you would always be on this trek of trying to find, quote unquote, God, when the seed was already you yourself, etc. And that the actuality of the soul and the physical body were just simply avatars for the spirit man. And chapter 1 clearly presents that. But I'm also aware, fairly, that many people who are not adepts were not told that as bluntly necessarily as we have been sharing with you over the years, and also why many people who have had this knowledge have been quite not necessarily pleased with Taji guy or people like me, because if it wakes up the energy packages that are encoded already in the seed of self, which most scientists refer to as DNA. That's why they always told the people it was junk. Because if they told you or trained you that was junk, you never thought into yourself to try to activate junk. Mentally, you would always say, well, I'm stuck with this stuff, and so I'll suppress it. And this is also why many of the jumpers who come here, that many women, mothers have brought here, some consciously, some subconsciously, according to themselves, their energy packages that they themselves carried with them, whether dormant or not, were brought here or channeled here in order to try to help clean this mess up. And the reality is that as we've been moving along, because we've gotten to a point level where a lot of the dark priesthood works have been suppressed, many of them will be more and more openly activating, because many of them felt different, but they didn't necessarily know who they were because they didn't know themselves. But that activation is operating in nature now, and so can't be stopped anyway. So it's more comfortable to talk about it now with many of them, because many of them knew that their avatars would be snuffed out if they talked. So many of them, but this is another thing too. Many of them who are what you would call activating themselves have their own little personal conflict of having shut down because of different pressures that have been put on them as they've grown up. However, enough of them are resparked, as you might say. The monads have been activated that the dark priesthood actually has no power to suppress anymore. That's what's going on now. That's why we're having this conversation. So that those who begin to recognize some of these little occurrences, even in their own lives, and particularly some of you who are recognizing that you need a little bit more sleep than you used to before. Just to remind you, the reason why you're doing that, it is simply because your body or this avatar is adjusting to the higher vibrations of the energy cycles of the soul that are entering into the realm of Midgard, And this is why for years here at the House of Reawakening Minds, we were reminding you that the earth has gone through the futon belt. And we won't go into that too much. I'm just reminding you of some of the things that we've shared with you over the years, and to remind you why we did at those times, because these were actually seeds along the way to prepare many of you who would begin to feel the discomfort of the changes that were coming about, that were definitely unavoidable, but that you'd be more able to handle them and get on with your work and not necessarily be distracted by looking at things being dismantled as necessarily negative, because they're not necessarily negative. They were just simply what you call cycles that have served their purpose, and we're throwing them off. And in the process of throwing off the agencies of the dark priesthood, you're actually throwing off the priesthood. And this is why, again, a lot of not as many, but you'll see people suddenly start making communications with the public that you've never necessarily heard of before, and all of a sudden they have a lot to say about the identities of humanities, the different tribes and the different peoples, and you'll have different people countering when before they had nothing to say, because they know that as this information comes up, because the reality is within the words and in many of the paradigms of the conversations that we've had, they were actually designed with certain words that actually carried vibratory sparks to them that actually activate different parts of the monad. Now, the masses didn't know that, so I'm telling you that right now. And even some of these things we talked about maybe 20, 30 years ago with the monad master, many of you who have come to the round table over the years, and we've talked about monad master, and we've talked about the cycles or the chambers of the mind, the conscious mind, subconscious mind, supra-conscious mind. With all of these, even though they were short edited lessons, all of them were designed to actually activate different areas of the monad, which actually have direct connection to the what referred to as the DNA. And these are simply genetic sparks to the seeds of Allah, or what you would call the actual life cycle or the life force of the monad, or what you call spirit man, etc., which is really the light or the nuclear or the nucleus that uses the avatar. Now, the priesthood always knows this stuff. It's really never really been a secret in that sense of the word. It's just that it's never been emphasized for the general public. And in chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Koran, Juali shared those keys with us. Some of you activated them, some activated later. And so honors due where honors due. It is not an issue of worshiping anything like that at all. It is simply that different mothers at different times, according to the laws of nature, will bring in sons and daughters who are actually warriors on other planes of life, and their job is to come, or the back step, or would you say from the past to the future past, to fix some things. And that's all that's is, and that's what Juali is. So I'm letting you know that. So many of you who have been detractors saying that the Moors are sitting around worshiping Juali, some may, but some know better. That's not what he came here for. And I'm appreciative that he made some sacrifices of his avatar to get some of this work done, just like those many who are before you or before him. And that was those avatars. So here we are now in this current operations of the dismantling of the dark priesthood. That's what's going on your political realm. That's what's going on in all your religious organizations. And that's what's going on in all your monetary systems. And that's what's going on in all your educational systems. And this is why all of them are broken. So don't be disappointed. As we talked over the years, go and respect your intuitive mind, because that's where your comfort will be. And in the process of doing it, you'll be raising or becoming aware of the ascending vibration of both your avatar and your soul in order to handle these higher planes of life, which are not coming, they're already here. So that's again why we're having this conversation. And also keep in mind the trick that the priesthood have done with their private commercial paper operations of the fiat system, and that they have, because remember, everything they operate on is an artifice. Keep that in mind. So write this down: artifice, artificial, color. So look up color of law in your law dictionary so that you can get a clear concept of what we're talking about, but it's on another level. So for those of, because of the time period, let me share this because I know some of you are starting to think right now what I'm referencing, and are trying to keep up with where I'm going with this because of our time period. So I'm going to share with you color. So we're going to Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, etc. That's the revised 4th edition, etc. And we're going to look up color and to give you a concept, but take this concept in jurisprudence, or what is known as positive law, and then take it into what you call the spiritual plane in relationship or correlating planes. Color. Color means an appearance, a semblance, or simulacrum, as distinguished from that which is real. A prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior, concealing a lack of reality. So this is again why many people who have over the years been claiming to help in the restoration or the uplifting of fallen humanity have chosen to attack people who have shared with you the principle or the linguistic principle of etymology and of positive law jurisprudence, and have been reluctant to go there themselves because they know that if they got the general people on a course of thinking and a course of study in positive law jurisprudence, which has its connection with natural law, would actually be a plane above what is known as the general civil law that is given to people under the platform of a color of law, and that it would kind of what you call punch a hole in the portal of the people's capacity to simply grow. Not unlike, say, people who know how things work here, in their mission, their continued mission of genocide, deliberately would put barium and other particles in the atmosphere, including nuclear trash, in order to recreate what they refer to as the Wigner's effect and disease, and also what they created when it's not new. It's not that they created, or they just gave it a different name. What they would refer to as Agent Orange, in order to attack Asiatic and African nations, etc., to kill the plant life, and also to alter the genetic structure of the people at the same time on the ongoing operations of the dark Babylonian operations of the priesthood of the Vatican of Rome, doing things in other people's names, i.e. everything is either an artifice or masking or proxy. Write all of them down, because all of that will relate to you, as some of you start analyzing what we're talking about tonight. And some things we're saying direct, some things we're saying indirect, but it's for activation purposes. Some of you recognize it, some of you don't. I'm not condemning, and I'm not judging. I'm just sharing, knowing that and appreciating that we have help, or we have aid coming from others who are coming, or what you would say, coming less attached to the third dimensional energies and values, and are willing to activate their monad and help in the uplifting of fallen humanity sincerely, for real. We're not talking about the fronters, because we've had a lot of fronters for quite some time that have been actually problematic. But rest assured, they're being removed out of the way. So I'm not even really concerned about that. And many of you over the period of time, and some who have contacted me indirectly by others, or who have talked to me directly, don't be offended that I haven't been necessarily communicating with a lot of you over these, particularly these last few months, because I've been busy, really busy on in areas that I'm not speaking of right now. However, I will say this: we're not losing. And also with some who have been close to me over the years, I apologize to this. Why some areas where I have not vested where you thought that I should have is because I've been busy. And I already knew that some things I wasn't supposed to do anyway. Even though I've been out of order, admittedly, in some areas. And however, I've been busy and not failing either. So know this too. In the issue of replication, where the hybrids, and not that there's not more hybrids, but I always use that term, particularly the last few years, because I already knew that they had activated some of their SS operatives on different levels. And when I recognized some of those counter moves, that's why when I started saying a few years ago, hybrid Europeans, that was purposeful. But that was to cause many of them to come out of the dark, and cause many of them that they needed, who were closer to us, to activate or to try to counter us. I already knew that. But in doing so, what they, you know how you say, if you start someone running confidently, running faster than they can, assuming that you can't run, type thing, and you, by their own means, they trip. This is what's happening on multiple levels. So a lot of that work that we were preoccupied with trying to counter or trying to sustain until we got to a certain plane of operative power, that we would be neutralized. However, we passed that point, so I'm not concerned about that. So we're over the years, some of you, because I've gotten a few calls actually in the last few months, not so much recently, of why I don't make the effort of countering some people that they refer to as trolls. It's because, to be honest with you, they're little fish, and I've been after bigger fish, and that's the real truth. And that's not with not stated with arrogance or with ego, simply a fight that I didn't choose. I just became aware of it, and so I decided that I wasn't punking out. And I'm here to tell you that. Now, replication. For some of you, you will be sleeping smarter, and you'll be recognizing that you need more rest, comprehend, and be aware of yourselves. Try to eat better. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Try to eat better, but also recognize some of these things that you're going to see. You'll get taste for certain foods more than you usually do, and at the same time, you'll be eating less. You'll be resting more, even if you don't intend to. So don't think there's anything wrong with you. It's not. It's really that your the third dimensional energies doesn't need as much ignition, or what you would call energy, because it's being reduced and dissolved. Therefore, it doesn't need a lot of the, as you would say, uh, the energy that has been sucked out of it, or that they needed to be sucking out of it, is not available. Therefore, they're not paying as much attention to it. And because they're not, you're also unconscious to yourself being actually freed from it. And then nature herself is simply activating what's already in you in the seed potencies that you see in chapter 1. That's why I always reminded you that chapter 1 is not numerated. Those of you who paid attention to it maybe grew with it. Some of you didn't. So I'm reminding you, for those who may have been a little slow in it, go look at it again, because it'll help you in your development. And that's why it's there. And the deceptions and misrepresentations, for the most part, we've discussed them over the years. And we've had help from a lot of people from all walks of life in these late, I'd say, particularly in the last 7 years, who have been doing a lot of work to help in uplifting fallen humanity, whether they stated it or not. And many of them, whether they intended it or not, but this is what it is. And so again, this is why over the years, we've always reminded you, so that as these times or these placements became apparent, that you wouldn't try to hold on to things that need to be discarded anyway. So don't be offended, although I know that many of us sometimes will think that things that we lose are losses, when they're actually done for purpose because they're dead weight and they're not needed anyway. So don't stress about that. And over the years, as we've told you, with the hybrids, particularly what they're doing to a lot of you right now, where they're tapping your accounts, and where they're raising the limit, lowering the limit, or raising the pressure by lowering the limit of your credit access. We told you about that years ago, so that you would be prepared and do other things to prepare yourselves and your families for the attack, because it's really an attack. Because they knew that you would become attached to what they would call a pact with the devil, as they would call it. And these would be called accounts that you have. And they would come for a pound of flesh. And you thought that they projected to you that the interest payments, what they call payments, on different accounts were actually monetary in their nature. No, they're for pounds of flesh, and they're coming for them. And so this is on multiple levels, and they're dealing more or less, even though they're dealing in third dimensional energy, they're projecting another level of fourth dimensional attacks on the people in the name of goodness or fixing things. And the real deal of it is the love of the money is actually a trick, because the people, as we've always told you, we're not allowed to have money. We don't need to go into some of our past lessons, and let's talk about, the alchemical relationships to the metals with the planetary operations in this particular side of this solar system, referring to gold, silver, copper in particular. We're not talking about the monetary scale or the different metal subcategories and minerals. We're talking specifically with the alchemical energies of the sun, the moon, and Venus, etc., which is used in reality for the basis of universal trade in money, etc. And anything else that they've told you is false, because that's not what we agreed to in this grade of Midgard and Urantria, and they know it, and we've been sharing it with you in order for you to better counter or be able to counter the operations, because they're going to use that operations to use a kill off. Again, know that the in your accelerated or in your heightened vibratory state, that you are actually able to replicate things yourself. This is another reason why they have been promoting artificial education, artificial intelligence, to take care or to activate any vital energy output relative to humans, etc., in order for you yourself to suppress the capacity that is actually a duplication of your DNA structure that's in you already, in the monad, that they already knew about. But they knew that if they would teach the people dogmata, that you yourself would suppress that capacity that was already in yourself. That includes your capacity to communicate without any instrumentalities. That include your capacity by will to replicate things that are needed. At the same time, keep in mind with the cognizance of the connectiveness of all, which is really the key of the discipline that humans in their higher state of consciousness would use in order not to will things that were injurious. Is also why in all of our Asiatic cultures, we've always maintained in the philosophies and customs, the tradition of anything that we project would be always analyzed in the circle of mothers with the sons, etc., for 7 generations down in all areas of projection, in order to keep our thoughts clean relative to that which would carry on to the next generation. That's where those traditions come from. They actually have spiritual origin, or what you call higher plane origin. And this is again why it was necessary for the dark priesthood to teach dogmata in order to disconnect the people from the cause or the nature and the necessity connection of the traditions of what they would refer to as primitive societies, when in fact they were actually advanced. However, much of those blockages are being removed with the fact that the institutions of the dark priesthood are being dismantled, and therefore they can no longer effectively maintain their grip or their fences over humanity. That's what's taking place right now. And so your capacity to replicate will also be starting to be manifested in your foods and everything else. And although I'm aware that many of the people won't catch on right now, I know that it's enough enough of you out there already that have already become cognizant of the other planes of life, and have, even though it's been a little bit discomforting, have been willing to push away some of your what you call carnal desires in order to activate your monad capacities. And I'm thankful for the few that are out there that are willing to take some sacrifice of that personal third degree or third level of carnal desires and project it to higher planes for the helping of the generations to come, or the generations that's coming now. Even though we have enough, well, you can say that we have enough, but I would say enough conscious women right now who are consciously bringing them here, that the dark priesthood really don't have the power to overcome. So you can tell Herod and all his boys, if they want to keep that exercise, they can go ahead and do what they want to do. However, they got to pay for it on multiple levels, etc. Because there's enough cognate people or beings here, monads activated, that they can't win anyway. And so I'm saying that to say this: for those of you who have goodwill, use whatever replication powers that you begin to manifest or recognize for the good of all. And the more and more you do it unselfishly or for the service to others, the faster we can get out of this mess that we're in. Would you like to add to that, Dr. J?
Just that something that I've been thinking about of late has more to do with, as you said, as we divest ourselves of, our attachment to the things that the lords of the land have given, and get back to our natural resources and natural abilities. It came to mind that, and I spoke this to a brother Julian the other day. I said, it is not the fiat that creates the things or the necessities, the so-called necessities of life, or even the luxuries. It is us. It is we are, we are the raw, if you will, material that then constructs and reconstructs things, that reconfigures, so that we have houses. We can take tree limbs or tree trunks and turn them into wood that becomes, framing for houses, and we can make the bricks that, you can put together. So we have within us, without the use of fiat, anything artificial, to do the things. We've got to get away from needing to exchange something false or fake for something that we can actually do without that.
Hold that thought and continue on that. Let me share some support of what you just now said. During Abraham Lincoln's administration, it was said, and many of you scholars and historians can probably bring up the words more precise, but I can bring up the concept. It was said in relationship to the people in general, and particularly from the political realm of the board of directors for the United States Corporation. It was said, the people must never know or come to know that money does not create labor. The laborers create money. Now, that's the position of these people who you generally respect as so-called corporate heads, is that they never wanted the masses to know, number one, that the so-called congressmen and senators and people who were set at the head of these big institutions, whether political, economic, educational, or religious, were actually in partnership with each other against the interests of the masses, and that they were actually maintaining organized secrecy from the rules or the laws of nature, and introducing to the people color of everything, whether the color of politics, color of education, color of jurisprudence, i.e. color of law, color of office, and color of authority, and that as long as they maintain that, the people would never know that, one, that the masses have, quote unquote, never been paid. Two, that therefore they can never pay a bill. Three, never know what a bill is really, and thus with animal husbandry training, which is AE, known as artificial education, they would never think themselves out of the conundrum of their own, what you call, perfidy of poverty, commonly referred to as slavery, etc. And that has been in operation actually for quite a few hundred years, and even with the institution of those activities by the dark priests having been one of the motives, the real motives of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, to and that's not defending him in any manner, but we're talking about to bring in an era of operations, had much to do with the assassination of Lincoln. This is also why the masses have never been told that Abraham Lincoln was the last lawful president for the United States Republic operating on the land, and that every administration of operations ever since Abraham Lincoln have been an absolute and total fraud. from day one. And this is also why many people who have known this fact have never taught it in order to benefit directly or indirectly from the AE operations and the AI operations that were put in and maintained by the dark priesthood, so that they would not suspect that the priesthood that they have all grown to respect were actually operating absolutely for dark side operations and not necessarily for light or what you call justice that people refer to as Jesus, Allah, Muhammad, those type of things, Confucius. The fact of the matter is that the priesthood behind them all, by infiltration and contamination, had also, by operations of their methodologies of introducing concepts that project a positive but were created in actually a negative intent, and thereby ruling the world, because everything was done by proxy and by masking and by impersonation. And so after a while, the people started looking at all of the impersonators in whatever office they may hold as being legitimate. And because the people themselves supported it, their replication powers were actually replicating the institutions. And that is the loosh that all the institutions actually live off, because people didn't know how things actually work. And so the deal, back to the point, the fact that many people's monads are activating on a higher plane is that this stuff can't survive anyway. And so the other issue is to make you aware, this is again why the priesthood, i.e. politicians, etc., have been accelerating in all levels of agency operations, injuries against the people, all done in the name of helping the people. So whenever anybody in any order or any agency of any so-called government says that they're trying to help you, now you should be aware more than ever that is always and always has been the opposite. And so many of you who have been, punished and persecuted for being aware of that as being outcasts, etc., you don't have to say, I told you so, and you don't have to necessarily be vindicated, feel vindicated. Use whatever energy you have to keep up the battle to knock the dark priesthood out of operations and all of its institutions. At the same time, use your replicating powers to produce, and particularly from your creative mind, etc., things that benefit humanity, benefit Midgard, i.e. Urantria, i.e. the animals, the earth, the cleansing, and things like that, and know that you're appreciated. So I'm letting you just say it ahead of time, etc. Because I know that with many have been frustrated over the centuries, because it has always been a thankless job. It has always been a thankless position, and you've all, in many ways, have been attacked for trying to do good, as you say, because all evils were being awarded, all corruptions were being awarded, all misrepresentations were being awarded, all positions of any what you call comfort was given to those who had what you call negative or narcissistic intent. Know that those things are being dismantled on multiple levels right now. So when you see the ripple effect into the all of the institutions, whether it's economic, educational, horticultural, so-called, and I say so-called with 5 exclamation points, religious, etc., don't be disappointed. Know that they're being dismantled in the favor of uplifting fallen humanity. And just because you've been attached to them, know that they have not been there for your good. So use your replication mind to create. In other words, you're actually being loosed to become more creative now. And so when Dwali said to reminded the Moors that you're creators and makers of your own, keep in mind he's referring to your replication capacities. Use them well. And also, I just want to remind people, you know how like when we talked before, Dr. G, you know, like a lot of times when you see Asiatics and Africans, they greet each other, and you'll see them lean to one shoulder and then lean to the other shoulder and then lean to the cheek.
Yeah.
Cherubim, seraphim, fallen angel. You're your own recorder. So nothing's hidden anyway. So what's the deal? So remove the ego and get to work. Let's not look for any sacrificial lambs or people to sacrifice their all to fix crap that we help support and help maintain, i.e. by replicating false idol god crap that has made all of us miserable. Meaning that y'all agree to this shit. So let's dismantle it. It's being dismantled anyway. If anybody doesn't want to cooperate, it doesn't really matter because it's enough workers right now and it's being dismantled anyway. So there's like for those who have any good left in them, get on the right side of history. And if you pay attention, you'll see a lot of the politicians and a lot of other people, you know, whether they're preachers and everything, all who knew this stuff anyway. Tithing was wrong. I accidentally bumped my head and discovered in the Bible that Pope Sylvester II was the tithing stuff, had nothing to do with Jesus, and therefore those 5 planes I got and 5 Rolls Royces and stuff. Well, I'm thankful for them, but you know, I didn't need them. No, they know what's up because things is coming at them that you may not be aware of right now, but it'll become obvious to the general public quite soon. And that goes for the politicians and the priesthood and all their other partners and their helpers that they've been paying to troll people who've been trying to get the truth out. And you ain't gonna have to wait long. In other words, put it this way, you can sit back and look at cause and effect. Put it that way. You got enough time to observe it.
We see the effect of one of the causes that happened a couple of years ago. As you recall, we were outside today, and the one brother was telling the brother about the brother who had a massive heart attack suddenly. Well, maybe you didn't pay attention to when we were getting the fish. But in any event, that's what started the conversation. We know we can't talk about that, but what started the conversation that I pulled you into. And yeah, that's what started the conversation. But my point is that we are seeing the evidence or the effect of the cause that was created for the effect.
And the Hermetic laws of cause and effect. And again, you know, even a lot of people who begin to study and begin to become somewhat activated or aware of higher planes of life. That's why in order to jump them a little bit, we'd always recommend that they would get the Kybalion that would assist them. And here and there, you know, different brothers and sisters would put out different keys that would help humanity. And for those who care, they would direct them to such information to aid in their cultivation to come out of the dark into the light.
And you know, we were talking, or were we talking about it? I talk so much, I don't know whether I was talking to you or not, Chrissy. But you mentioned it about, say, for health, for instance, that you know the beds would come out soon.
Yeah.
But you know, and I put every time we on here, I am rolling something out about an AO scan, and what the people don't know, even though I can't openly talk about it the way I want, I'd like to. There is technology that has I'm going to say resurfaced because it's the old technology.
It's really old.
That is doing what can't be done in conventional Western terms. But we are so conditioned and programmed. We don't, unless we have, you know, an allopathic opinion, we don't take these things for, and so it's hard for some of us to get back to what the old folks used to say, the old time way.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to get back there.
It's called futures past, or sometimes referred to as back to the future.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is that as the different monads evolve, which they're doing now, some will be able to do that with their mind. Because really, keep in mind, it's all done with the geometry that projects the sound, that projects the vibration. All of it, always.
Everything is a distortion.
Sound, vibration, all of that area expressed. This is why, like when you start looking at older Moorish buildings, and people would wonder why all the tiles had all these geometric forms,
Mm-hmm.
and almost every part of any wall was covered with some symbol or geometric form. Is because the different geometries project different vibrations and sounds that create or make manifest things. And this is the reality of it is, when it says when Joali said go back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers, he's actually sending you to the cure, to the future's past, to back to the future. And the reality of it is, the masses have not known that we have been operating in a closed state of artificial retardation.
That's what I'm gonna say.
That's the real truth.
Right.
You know, it's hard for people to accept it, but the real deal, even when you deal with scholars from around the world, they'll admit that the priesthood set the world back 500 years. You can compound that. That was really not conservative. It was extremely conservative, because just like when a lot of things that they've been hiding in, say, the Grand Canyon, or in the cave systems of Kentucky, as an example, and different areas where they've been blocking information, or even as the hybrid Europeans set up what they call the Smithsonian Institute on the Seven Hills of Rome at Washington, D.C., for the specific mission of hiding real artifacts of America that go back million years, forget thousand, millions. And in order to maintain the closed state of mind, or the suppressed cognizance, or to suppress the DNA activity or the activation of the monad, it has been necessary politically for them to do these things. And they would use everything they could to justify themselves, which is even why, like, when they altered the Septuagintas, as an example, right? When they altered the Septuagintas, and I think they did about up to the 1920s, I think they made about 136 different versions or modifications and alterations of what they would call translations of the Bible out of Septuaginta, in order to hide both the geometry in it, also, which is known on the seven or the circle seven books of Moses, etc., for the purposes of locking the people away from keys that would take them back to the original culture, which by the very mind itself, it would allow the people actually to liberate themselves. They didn't need no outside gods. And of course, this is again why so much emphasis has always been put on the corporate operators of the priesthood controlling the womb of woman under the guise of helping her. Whether they're talking about the marriage certificate and its real and true meaning and function, whether they talk about the birth certificate and its true meaning and function, whether they talk about women's rights of the body with its true meaning and functions, and put them all together and take them back to the doctrine of discovery and the unum sanctum operations, etc. This is again why in the priesthood, they don't teach any of those documents in correlation with the legislation operating in under the board of directors of the Senate and the Congress men, and their connection to the Sanger operations and the eugenics operations, so that the people would not make a correlation that they were actually being attacked by people who they've been funding in the name of quote unquote taxpayer against in support of their own genocide and for the suppression of the monad spirit, i.e., light connecting to the DNA. But of course, again, as that's out of their hands, it's out of their purview. They're doing other things as best as they can with the powers they have left to create as much chaos and havoc among humanity as they possibly can right now. But again, this is back to people being aware of what they're doing and being aware of their general intentions, that just by your thought alone, you can start countering them. You don't necessarily have to do anything physical. You can do it all in your projection. So again, when a lot of you are, how do you say, recognizing that you're sleeping a little longer than you were, now know why that the hybrids have been upset about the so-called sunspots, because those sunspots are actually activators of the DNA. It's not negative to you, it's negative to them. And that's the truth. So fear not.
And I know, some folks, and I'm not preaching, but I'm reminded of that prophecy in the book of Daniel 7, where it talks about he will speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws until they should be given into his hand, until a time and times and the dividing of time. So what I see at that is that we've been under that kind of spell, so to speak. We have the words that we're already in that. We're already in that.
AE is the artificial education.
Right. And so, and to me, speaking against the Most High is speaking against the God in me. Speaking against, it's not something, like I said, external. That's the problem. They got us looking outside instead of looking in. And some have commented in the chat.
Therefore, suppressing your own capacity
for
replication.
And even, Gresham, when you talk about the current, my body, my choice. Mm-hmm. When I think of that, I think in terms of if we make true choices to come in as male or female, particularly as female or womb men, mm-hmm. womb man or and woman, we come in with the expectation or with the almost contractual agreement to be the carriers or the transporters or the portals, the Stargate for others of beings of us to come in. And this is that's why that's what it's for. It's not for pleasure. It's because that's why we are the womb man as opposed to just man.
And the responsibility that goes with it. This is again why, like we talked about years ago, why they don't teach the applied science of the number 9 to women, knowing that that's part of the culture. That is one of the most important aspects of Asiatic African culture. Always has been. And yet, when you bring it up as a subject, you'll see people become offended. You'll see people become condemning, etc. And they're threatened by it because it also deals with the real truth of the metaphor. Why Herod come to kill the firstborn? What that means? They would begin to associate that with the genocide operations of both the Sanger and eugenic operations of the Gates family, dealing with what they would call in the 60s, introduce, would pay the women to get their men out the house, and then introduce what they would call the reduce your weight by eliminating something that's in your womb operations, and then call it rights of women's bodies, and not with the women not knowing that those are Herod operations.
So that's, destroying every male under the age 2 years and under or something. Yeah, it's the same.
And
it's the same energy, the same spirit.
And also why when we had that talk a few months ago, why everything went out and we were put in what you call communication jail.
Yeah. That's right. Because that's not something that, they want, us to become cognizant of, to think at the heart level.
But this is the whole deal. When women do and recognize that they have been tricked into participating in their own demise and the what you call corruption of the Stargate that they are stewards of, where their divinity comes in, they would be starting to do what? Humble themselves and make supplication to the Most High to forgive. But in doing so, they would also, many of them would agree to bring in champions. As you know, sort of like when people, when they recognize they've done something that's contrary to that which is good, and they've been deceived and they participated in it, and then in order to kind of make up, they do something extra good for the universe and they bring in champions. Well, guess what? That's happening. Because remember the Stargate, that room, when that room activates, it can bring a form in what is known as the physical, but it also brings the form, soul form.
Monad.
It's the same rule. See, people keep thinking that everything that germinates must take what you would call third dimensional form. Well, that's not true. And that's another part of our, what you would call dimensional reality that's becoming more cognate. Is now, let's put it this way. Mothers with good hearts will start doing what's necessary to counter those who have dark hearts to the degree that the dark hearts will not rule here in spite of what they do. And that's what's going on now. Again, as a reminder, this is again why the priesthood is doing all this stuff to humanity. They're both, I'd say for a time, it is trying to maintain power, and then recognizing that they can't do that, they're trying to create as much chaos and destruction as they can while they're being removed. That's really what's going on right now. But again, for the monads who are aware of what's on, be of good spirit, and don't feed into fears, and don't fall for defeat. Don't let them convince you just because they're putting pressures on you on multiple levels that you're defeated, because it's not what's up. And the things that are falling apart, remember, are their institutions, not yours. Even though many of our people have attached themselves to it and built their lives around it, remember that's the AE operations for the AI operations. So the artificial education and the AR artificial religions was put in place to attach you to them. So when those cords are being severed, don't think that that's not in your interest. So that double-edged sword that, i.e. Jesus bring Adul, for that was really for that purpose. And this is again why, a lot of people who look at this thing metaphysically, they'll make statements like, everybody call for Jesus and they're upset when he get here. Because they didn't expect that sword to have two edges. They're looking at one edge. Better be on the handle side. That's all I got to say.
Well, it's just
sincerity of intent and goodwill has a lot to do with, how would you say, the reciprocity issues, cause and effect issues, the balance issues.
A question with the dismantling of these, the dark priesthood and those above who are controlling this. What would be your response to? And there were some questions I saw, comments regarding well, is it still necessary to go through the process of nationalization or declaring one's nationality or going filing forms
only in this? Oh, don't even worry about filing forms. If anything that's filed now is going to be filed in the ethers.
So is it
because the platforms which the filings were to be sent to are being dismantled, meaning that anything that they're doing in the appearance of operations is fictional to drain as much loosh and much energy from the people as they can get while they're going out. It's sort of like people still discussing, can you find any residual stock in Sears and Roebuck and invest in that while it's being dismantled? And in Kmart, as an example. It's the same thing. No different than people who are still looking from the concept of things being the same, just need to be fixed, who would invest in large real estate right now, who are going to find themselves underwater within a month or two. I guarantee you. Guarantee it. That ain't far off. So those of you who've done it, remember, I've said it. That's an example of other things. And then guess what else? So all of the other institutions that would also house, or I say, accoutrements to dress it up.
New schools.
So look at that too.
Look, new schools being built.
Hmm?
Schools being built.
They're built for the future. And some of them are built in vain. And then some of them, let me be honest with you. There's a certain, there are some beings that have been active in the last few years, which I've mentioned to people, that certain people were assigned. Don't necessarily look at them on what you see their package being. Were assigned to cause the dark priesthood to expend and extend their private commercial paper instrumentality of bodily instruments to enslave the people that was really designed to break them or to cause them to go bankrupt while they're still in operation, which means the operations being in place to actually rob the people are actually reversed in energy because they're operating under Aquarian energy. And Aquarian energy, regardless of the intent, cannot live in that light. It just can't happen. So it's almost like look around you and look at the many buildings that represent, i.e., different institutions that the people have become used to, and notice that they are trying to sell them because they have lost their purpose. So all purpose-built buildings, according to the institutions that you've become used to, are now actually dead. Mm-hmm. So logically, they want to get people to invest in those things who don't really see what's up. This is so they can steal your energy while there's some energy to still give. Be aware of that so that you can make wise decisions, and don't look for some guru guys to be advising you, because you're going to have to take responsibility for your own decisions, and you're making those choices. However, if you stay passive, that's still a choice. So there isn't anything such as inactivity in the sense that people take it. And what they've called karmic cause and effect is what is done and also what is not done. All of that is action.
Here's a question. When you say large real estate, do you mean houses or
all other property? Anything that has to do. See, this first, let's put this away and write this down. And we talked about this before, Doc, though we won't go into this. The masses don't know what real estate is. That's number one. I'll give you this to do research on your own. Real property, subject matter. Real estate, subject matter. Which one have you done? If you've done real estate, you're going to be underwater. And they're going to come back for it. However, other things are being put in place where, although that has been their pattern,
to counter that,
yeah, for those who have some sincerity, they will be remedied after some suffering first for continuing to believe in the system. You will pay for it. You will pay. That's for real. You ain't getting out of it. In other words, we're going to learn one way or another to reject Rome. And that's what's going on now. Because everything that Rome sets up has been for your injury. If they've touched it, it's corrupted. If their fingers in it, it's corrupted. If you contract with them, it's corrupted. And you're the loser. Except that some things are being done on other levels to make them the loser of everything they throw at you. However, by you dealing with them, you can still lose along with them. It's called in a common metaphorical statement to kind of that the average person relates to. It's called render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And if you think that you're going to get a benefit by not rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, because you want to think you're going to get some cookies on the way out, that's your choice. And you will be responsible for that replication. That's what it is. So, let's not feel sorry for each other. Let's just learn from this. Because we're on a learning curve for all humanity right now. And you know how we talked about like maybe 8 years ago at the house?
Mm-hmm.
And we say a lot of people are looking at their navigation or their carpenter's tools, what we call the compass and the square, from the perspective, of what they generally consider cause and effect. But many of them really do not understand or comprehend or understand that everything that we've done were simply seeds for us to reap later. And there's no escape from it. And so when they say render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, that means you got to recognize that Caesar is a term that presents as Rome rulers and their edicts and their general political, social, economic, educational operations. You hold on to any of it, and all of it is what you call a seed of death in every one of them. Now, logically, when people are disconnected from themselves, they see nothing else because this is all that we've been raised around. And so people attach to these things because mentally they give credibility that these things are in place for human development, not knowing that they're all seeds of demons. And because they've seen nothing else, they attach their energy to nothing else, not knowing that they're simply opening themselves up like a battery to what you call an alien louche sucker, because that's what's up. And just because they don't see it physically, and this is back to when the people don't see it physically, they don't think it exists.
You all that are asking me to ask him about casinos. Ask him what about casinos, because he's gonna say, what do you mean? So what are you asking me to ask him about casinos? Okay, don't just say what about casinos. Are you saying what about buying them? What about going to them?
Therefore entertainment, therefore food, and therefore
sucking out your resources.
Therefore what? Therefore entertainment, if you go there for there. Therefore food, if you go there for there. Therefore stealing your energy via the fiat for there too. All of those things are there. Everything that's out there institutionally is there for multiple level purposes. What do you go there for? If you go to the corner store, they're there for multiple reasons. You go to a diner, more than one reason. Go to a game there for more than one reason.
Yeah, I don't know whether, like I said, do they want to know what about casinos? So that's all. Could be anything.
And the real deal is for it's for people to become really more creative. All of this is for you to start going to your inner creative powers and to replicate that which is good, even in the face of negatives. Because remember, Midgard has been thrown into a state of lower vibration negativity. There's no escape from it in that sense of the word relative to the institutions. However, you can bring a spark of light where there's darkness.
But the point I was making when you said hold that point when I started off my Discord course was to do with the fact that everybody probably on this live, everybody who's going to see this even after we're over, you have abilities, you have talents, you have gifts. You came in here specifically. You got to go, not what your mama and your daddy forced on you because that was their dream. They lived out for you. What did you purpose to do when you said, send me, I go? When you look for a body to inhabit, to come here on, into this reality, what were your gifts? You got them. And what we need to do is to find a way to come together and to use those gifts for the collective good. So if I'm a baker, if you a butcher, if you build houses, if you make clothes, if you can work with metals, and why don't we do that instead of worrying about who's going to get the most fiat? And
this is
we can all be wealthy because we have what we need. We don't need the fiat.
Remember this. The fiat was only put in place to generate activities in those areas of the real value of resource.
And the resource is us.
The fiat never had a value.
And the resource is us. Now exactly. I see what, yeah.
So therefore the masses must never know that what? Labor creates, not fiat. Yeah. Fiat was put in place to control the labor, which is the energy. All of it's about energy control. This is why we always tell people to remind yourself, go back to King Alfred operations to look at the priesthood's own words. They tell you they just didn't expect the masses to get hold of those documents. Even though there was redaction, it's enough information there for anybody to see that the priesthood, i.e., the political platform themselves, are demonic, and are anti-humane and genocidal in intent, knowingly, which includes all agencies constructed and incorporated by them. Give me King Alfred. Let me remind people, because really what we're doing, we're inspiring you to think again, and also to begin to trust yourselves, and also recognize that you don't have a benefit in not trusting yourself anymore. You only have you. The sooner you get, like over the years, Doc, when we would say, I, self-law and master, or a lot of people would, become controversially debating about that. That's what it really means. It really means that the divine or Allah is in you. And you're going to have to learn from whatever so-called philosophies that you may encounter to activate that divine that's in you, because that's where it is. When you look out, you've already lost the game, and the opportunists are already there to suck on you. So let's go to King Alfred, and I'm going to show you economic shock testing as an example.
Well, you're looking for that. Somebody wanted to know whether or not the American Bar Association will also be dismantled.
Yes, it is. This is why, remember years ago, say in 14, right? In 14, 15, when we start sharing with you the civil orders from Pope Francis to Barack H. Obama, showing you the connection, showing you their own document, showing you some of the documents from Anna von Rees, who was operating as private attorney for Pope Francis in relationship to United States Corporation Company, in relationship to the CEO who was assigned in those operations named Barack H. Obama, who was exposing the operations of the politics since 1860s, etc. Even informing the masses that Lincoln was the last president, and talking about the operations, etc. And they're violating of the Aboriginal people tagged as African Americans and their bond system that's being collapsed right now, and its operation for 150 years at that particular time. You know, it's not like it's not there. And even with the fact that this information was supposed to be presented to the public at all costs, and it wasn't. And you'll notice that some of your so-called quote unquote black leader guys who were directly given this information incidentally didn't get into this information, but meanwhile they sent out all kinds of trolls to attack people like me and others who were sharing this information with you for years, referring to us as rebels, renegades, and everything else when they were supposed to be telling you this stuff. Now it's all over the world. Now, none of them have anything to say about that still. Why? Because it will show that they were complicit. Not only shows that they were negligent, also shows that they weren't worthy of the titles they were carrying, and also makes them suspect as to why they weren't talking about these things then and now. But now it doesn't really matter because all the institutions, including them institutions that they're part of, are collapsing. So there. But anyway, let's go to Rex 84, King Alfred. You know, because again, it's so much. Again, Doc, and this is stuff that we've been giving people for years. It's just that it's manifesting. You know, it's not manifesting. They're in it now. So it's sort of like we're not trying to tell you to get an umbrella. We told you that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We're just, you know, trying to comfort those who didn't get the umbrella, and trying to, you know, get those who have gotten the umbrella, etc., to help those who didn't get it if you love them. But at the same time, don't waste your time with those who think that this information had no value, or who are working against it because they had ulterior motives. But the deal of it is we're not in the business of telling you, I told you so. We're still trying to help a little bit while this thing is while its corruption is manifesting to the whole world, not to a few of us, but to the whole world, and cannot be denied by anyone. Now, this is their general introduction of themselves to the world. This is only with their private meetings of the Odd Fellows, different Masonic fraternal orders, the Fraternal Order of Police, private religious nonprofit organization, United States Corporation Company,
Tavistock.
Yeah, all of them. Tavistock, all of them. And it's known as the Executive Order number 11490. So you already know executive order comes from the praetor position of the executive branch of the corporate operations, known as the executive branch of the presidency, right on down to the other subdivisional branches of their corporate government, etc. So that's this booklet contains vital excerpts from Executive Order 11490, October 19th, 1969, King Alfred Plan, Rex 84 Plan, concentration camps, Executive Order 11490 expanded, top secret, silent weapons for quiet wars, introductory, programming manual, operations research, technical manual, TM-SW7905.1. Its military name is called King Alfred. Then you do the research on King Alfred and his relationship battling the Moors, and you'll kind of understand, where you are today. Then it has the executive order. Then it has the exotic map. that all the politicians have dealing with the territorials at North America, at the hub of the Maghreb, that's not known to the public. And you'll see all the different so-called nation states names are in there too. And they're giving you a whole different concepts of the Mappa Mundi, what they call the map. But anyway, so that we don't get too distracted, let me get to their introduction. This is their introduction. And so that we can look at the necessity of you learning replication in yourself. Security. It is patently impossible to discuss social engineering or the automation of a society, i.e., the engineering of social automation systems, silent weapons, on a national or worldwide scale without implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life, i.e., slavery and genocide. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny. Otherwise, it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of domestic war. Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without the full knowledge and consent of the public uses such knowledge and methodology for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between said person or groups of persons and the public. The solution of today's problems requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid, with no agonizing over religious, moral, or cultural values. You have qualified for this project because of your ability to look at human society with cold objectivity, and yet analyze and discuss your observations and conclusions with others of similar intellectual capacity without a loss of discretion or humility. Such virtues are exercised in your own best interest. Do not deviate from them. Summary. Welcome aboard. This publication marks the 25th anniversary of the Third World War, called the Quiet War, being conducted using subjective biological warfare fought with silent weapons. This book contains an introductory description of this war, its strategies, and its weaponry. May 1979, number 74-1120. That should tell you current politics on all levels, whether pharmaceutical, mainly, whether political, economic, educational, but you weren't supposed to see this, although we've been sharing it for a couple of decades. But let's go into the energy issue. Energy. Energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural energy. And social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is the study of the sources and the control of social energy. Both are bookkeeping systems, mathematics. Therefore, mathematics is the primary energy science. And the bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the methodology of the bookkeeping. All science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge. The end is control. Beyond this remains only one issue. Who will be the beneficiary? In 1954, this was the issue of primary concern, although the social moral issues were raised. In view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. And such a people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. That's their opinion of you. Always has been. And that's all your leader guys. And that's all your members of all your secret societies, including all your priesthood who've been taken to the mountaintop, which is called the Great Seal. That's a fact. And that mountaintop, i.e., symbolizing the geometry of structure, but also known as the Great Pyramid of the ancient Canaanite Moabite nation, i.e., Great Seal Order of Islam, overthrown in 1850s, i.e., and since then you've been catching hell all over the planet. Anyway, hope we sent out some signals to some of you who are beginning to recognize who you are, recognizing why you've been in conflict with a lot of the things that have been expected of you in society, that in your heart of hearts you didn't want to be a part of, but you were being pressured to be a part of. Feel free to start being yourself. Learn of replication. Use goodwill, good intent, and get to work, because we got a lot of work to do, even though we know that the priesthood are being dismantled on multiple levels. The cleanup is not ended just because their stuff is collapsing. Just keep that in mind. However, that's why over the years I've always said to many people, a lot of things that we're doing now will not be doing later. And it's not so much that the intent is not there. It's that recognize when certain things have become obsolete by being aware of your capacity to see on multiple dimensional levels. Anyway, have a good night. And I'm thankful that you all shared this night with us here at House of Reawakening Minds. And I'm sure Dr. G, as usual, has a lot of other things to share with us. Would you like to share something with us, Doctor?
No, just to say thank you, and to echo what you said, to thank you all for coming, for sharing with us. And also, I am looking for competent guests to be on office hours with Dr. G. For right now, I'm still doing 2 Tuesdays instead of every Tuesday, because it takes a lot to get the guests together. So if you are, or someone you know would make a good guest and you know how to get in touch with them, of course, please. I just ask that you would, it's scrolling at the bottom. They can email me at drgisofficial@gmail.com or call me at that number that everybody knows by now, and let me know whether or not, or let me know about the guest, the potential guests, so we can get them lined up to come on the show. Also, I would like to say, Grand Sheik, I want to thank those who are supporting us. We are still looking for, and some of you are doing it, we're looking for sustaining support. It can, it says right here, a minimum monthly donation of $5, but it could be a minimum monthly donation of $1. We every right now, everything counts. It helps us at least to maintain the building and so forth. We're not paying salaries or anything, but we're doing some work, in the building. And before everything collapses, Grand Sheik, we do want to get everybody, as many as we can, to the renovated, newly renovated again building.
Let's be honest, repair some work that people thought that was done before that really wasn't done.
Well, there were things that needed to be done. And we also have a campaign about, we definitely need about 80 new chairs in there. Want to thank those who have already sent in, whatever you send in for support, we do appreciate that. But if you can send us $1 a month or something like that, or 50 cents, we appreciate it. It would absolutely help. We do not have the tenant that we had, is no longer there. So, and it was a unexpected separation of the tenancy. So, of course, anything you do will, of course, help us. And sisters, listen, thank you so much for those of you who are are responding to the call for to join. We ask that we're trying to band together and make a difference. WAR stands for the women are ready. And we certainly are. A lot of you, about 150 of you so far, but it's like 1,000 something. Well, now it's about 900 something of you on here. If you are a woman, we had a couple brothers, Grand Sheik, that wanted to join the war, and we probably will have a support group for the war for the brothers that want to be a part. But sisters, if you want to be a part of, the women are ready, and we are trying to change the platform that we're going to meet on, because we can't do it on the platform we had. We just have to have a bigger platform, and it costs a little bit more fiat until we can have our own systems. But just call, text rather, your name and your email address to 302-345-0500. And we're going to be getting back to you really, really, really soon about what we are planning to do. And last but not least, I do want to make sure that you all remember to order yourself some chokeberry. Grand Sheik was able to see my supplier when we were at the Natural Products Expo, and with everything that's going on with the supply chain, the products are packaged over in, some of the stuff is ready over in Germany, but they can't get some of the packaging because some stuff's happened. Some packaging is done. It's done in Ukraine. Okay, so I have a limited supplies, particularly if you are a regular for getting the chokeberry. I'm gonna try to get an order in very soon. I have some, but if you want to try chokeberry, I guess now is your time to try the chokeberry, because I'm not sure. If it comes to a point where we might not be able to have that, but
not just that, it's good when you think about it. It's part of the cleansing that's necessary to activate the DNA, even though it's indirect.
Right.
And I was thinking about that on the way up here too, particularly when you discussed about the interruption of the trade, and even them having to alter how they even distribute it to. Because they've been locked out too. Anything that helps the people is being interrupted.
But one thing that is not interrupted, you all, if you are curious at all about an AO scan, I am telling you, you need to reach out to me and talk to me about an AO scan and what it can do. And any of you who might be on here and you've had an AO scan, or if you're seeing this after the fact, put a comment in the comment section about your experience, because you know that this is the TRUTH. It is the truth. And we need this kind of thing when all that other stuff is no more. Well, we don't really need it to be available. We need it to be done away with. And we need to go back to natural. As you said, Gresh, we are energy. And we need, and energy knows energy, and every cell in our body has an energetic signature. And when that cell, or when that tissue, or that organ, or that whatever function is out of whack on an energetic level, we can tell what it is, and we can coax it back into its right, calibration.
GMOs specifically and scientifically as a bio attack to block the activation of the monad via the DNA. Keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
And I want to just share this a short line,
because
I could feel the energy of thought. A lot of some of the people were thinking, or why was I mentioning the tunnel chambers of hell? There's the real meaning of hell, just for the few who didn't get it. Hell, Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition revised. Hell, the name formerly given to a place under the executor's chamber where the king's debtors were confined. And put that in perspective with what they call taxpayers and the Vatican's operations of the Jesuits' operations known as the Federal Reserve.
Interest rates. I saw
all of it.
I saw my dead pledge jump $400 in 2 months. Right? So, yeah, because of what they're doing. Before I had to stop the bleeding, but that's what I'm saying. You're right. They're trying to get us to, so they get to the place where they
funding
start taking back.
Enslavement.
That's right.
Just keep that in mind.
So we appreciate y'all. Please, as I said, support us if you can. We, want to keep it going. If you know someone who could come and be a part of office hours with Dr. G on a Tuesday night, please have them reach out to me. And of course, Grand Sheik is here on the first and third Fridays. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Make sure you share. If you didn't like, I see some frowns up there, but who cares about them? But we want your likes and we need your shares. It helps with the algorithms. No, we are not monetized. We are not monetized. We don't get YouTube doesn't send us a penny, and we haven't sought to get anything from them because we are independent. We don't want to be dependent on them. It's bad enough that some of the things we have to censor what we're saying, but no, we are not monetized. So what we do can get higher up in the search engine when you like and when you share, and we do appreciate you doing so. All right, Grand Sheik, I guess that's it, right?
Yep.
Till next time.
Have a grand evening.
I'll be on Tuesday. Yep, I will be. I will be here on Tuesday, y'all. Because folks be wondering when you be, Dr. J. All right, let's get out of here.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living